So I told you about when I was in Minneapolis, right?
Yeah.
When I had gone to a
Yep.
company meeting in
Yep.
Minneapolis. Okay.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I forget what prompted the question, or excuse me, this guy who was I guess technically a peer of mine. He's an RGM at the St. Cloud store, which is just so sweet because that's where I used to play
Go to school.
football.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And as I said, I don't remember what caused him to say this, but it hit me like a ton of bricks, so the saying goes. He said that he wants to be seen for what he wants to be seen for. And that was just so profound. And as you and I have talked, and how we always talk when I'm on my way home from work,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking about changing up some of the messaging in terms of what it is that we're actually talking about on this show. I think that's more of what we're trying to get across, because I think there's a sect of people, especially in this industry, who want just that. I mean, that guy in particular, I think his name was Matt. And Matt, if you're listening to this, shout out, brother. He's a musician. And I think there are a lot of musicians, writers, creatives, entrepreneurs, athletes who aren't being seen as those things, but they're in fast food,
Sure.
right?
No, I mean, yeah, I understand that totally. And I mean, I think I can't remember who proposed this, but I heard it one time as like, there are three U's. There's the how you see yourself, how other people see you, and who you actually are.
Mm,
You know, and I agree with the fact that we all want to be seen a certain way,
yeah.
and not to divorce it from QSR because we talked on the way home, or when you were driving home one time. Monica and I call it the drive home call. Yeah, but about being a Renaissance person, a Renaissance man, and how much that contributes to your leadership in QSR.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of outside interest outside of QSR, as do you.
Mm-hmm.
But when I go down them in my head, oh, wow, I like this. How does that help me as a leader in QSR?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can make correlations with every single thing.
And that was essentially the impetus of this show, is what you just talked about. That was our very first episode.
Right.
Well, not maybe our very first, but our first
In the
official
beginning,
one,
yeah.
because we've been doing this for longer than the amount of that's on Spotify. But that was the title of the first episode. Was
Well, we've been doing this long before we even started filming it. So.
yeah,
I mean,
dangerously well rounded.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about
Yep.
being a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And it's actually funny. The company that I work for, Border Foods LLC, they actually did a write up on me, being the company's jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's a lot of, especially men in this industry, who are, to use your term, Renaissance men, and they're miserable because they feel like they're stuck in fast food because they're not being seen for what they want to be seen for. And that can leave them, especially you and I being Christians, that can put them in a rock and a hard place, which is providing in one life while praying for another.
Exactly. I've never felt stuck in fast food. And it may be a little bit because the decisions I made led me to fast food. So it wasn't necessarily for, like a lot of people fall into fast food.
Yeah.
I specifically kind of sought out fast food. So I never really felt stuck. But there are times where I felt, why fast food? Why are you in the QSR industry? What's your contribution?
Maybe not stuck in I mean, although I've certainly felt that way at
well,
times more than once. But do you feel like that you haven't been seen for what you want to be seen for in QSR? Where maybe skills of yours weren't fully fleshed out because of a position that you were in?
I think so. To a certain extent, yeah. A lot of what I talk about when I'm talking in front of this microphone, I'm talking to the 23-year-old David,
Mm.
you know, and thinking I wish at 23, 24, 25, when we started this whole journey,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with QSR, you know, when Bud and I started this whole journey with QSR, is I wish that I had a future me. You know, there was no such thing as consultants. There was, you know, that was, you had to really, you know, a lot of it was sink or swim kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So a lot of what I'm doing, I'm speaking to past me.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we're speaking to people that are just starting their journey in QSR, and hopefully that they'll, you know, reach out to us, because, you know, we have a lot of wisdom garnered over, you know, years or experiences or positions
Mm-hmm.
or turnarounds, and, you know, and all humility aside, you know, I wish I had a me when I was 24 or 25.
And that's when you got into the industry?
Yeah, let's see. 1987, February 1987 was when the first store opened. So the first 3 years of the store, first 4 years of the store, I was kind of a silent partner,
Yeah.
and then I came on board, you know.
So talk about that story. Is everything as far as what got you into it, what you did being undercover, like being the undercover boss.
Oh yeah,
and all of it? Yeah.
I did do an undercover boss.
Yeah. So shed some light. Those are great stories.
So, you know,
How'd you get into the industry?
so my partner Bud, he was the franchisee on the documents, and then I was
Which concept?
Subway.
Okay.
And at the time, there were only 1,800 stores nationwide, most of them on the East Coast in Florida.
Okay.
So when he approached us for financing, and, you know, a few people, he was a retired electrician from General Motors. Said, I'm thinking about this concept of Subway sandwiches, submarine sandwiches, and we, you know, what the hell, you know, kind of thing. And so then I was a director, vice president of sales and marketing for a hotel company. I had a lot of business experience. He was an electrician.
Mm-hmm.
So we would talk almost daily about business. And he kept saying, David, will you please just take over running them, just take over running them, take over running them. And I, for three and a half years, I said no. And then finally I agreed, I will. I'll go all in. So I was 26 when I went all in on QSR, 26, 27. And I said, I don't want anyone to know who I am. I want to come in as a manager of a store and strictly manage a store for 1 year. I don't want anyone to know who I am, what I am. And I'm just, and it was partly, I wanted knowledge of QSR, but I wanted knowledge to see culture and what we could do differently and those kind of things. So that's it, kind of a nutshell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was, so I
So you were the franchisee operating as the RGM at a single store.
At a single store, making decisions with Bud behind the scenes about growth and, you know, because I think.
And how many locations did you have when you were
at that time when I came on? 2, opening up a third.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that gives you a lot of agility to make moves.
Right.
When you have that much presence in the store, when you're technically above the store with only 3 locations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we always tried to keep everything nimble.
Yeah.
That was
You're
big
more like
goal.
a tugboat at that point, right? Rather than the Titanic taking forever to make a turn or a move, right?
And at that time, Subway was very much target, the buy-in was really low. The build-out costs were really low. The strategy with Subway was very much SUOs.
Single unit owners.
Yeah. And, but even though that, I mean, at that time when we started, the most pre-job, pre-career of franchisees before they went into Subway were school teachers.
Mm.
And so, I mean, there wasn't a lot of business knowledge at the franchisee level.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to bring in this.
Because you came from a very corporate hospitality hotel background.
Very corporate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How did that help you in QSR?
It helped me with looking at structure, looking at processes, like previous episode where we talked to Mike to John.
Yeah.
Help me look at it really clarified teamwork, not family.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that, but I went all in on QSR, but I also had a ton of other interest outside of QSR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to may I go from there?
Sure.
That was that was fantastic segue. So David went all in on QSR. Perhaps you're in QSR right now. And David alluded to having a number of different interests. If you're somebody like ourselves who has a dream, right? Because that was the impetus of the show, is that, hey, fast food can fast track your dreams, because they very much did that for me. It's not I don't think it's, how do I say this? You shouldn't have to sacrifice your dreams just because you're fulfilling your responsibilities as a man and a provider.
Right. Oh, no.
Right? Because QSR can certainly do that. It can certainly provide. But at the same time, if you don't get a hold of it and you don't apply some of the leadership principles that you and I talk about, well, it could engulf you.
It can beat you down.
It can absolutely beat you down. And
it
can monopolize your time.
Burnout, all of the negatives that we talk about that QSR can cause to you, we've experienced.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
So we're not sitting here in in our golden thrones.
No.
We've experienced all the negatives that QSR can send your way.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can help you navigate around those, through them, over them, under them.
Yeah.
Push. Right.
So if you're that guy who's listening right now, who's providing in one life while praying for another, you're that athlete, that entrepreneur, that artist of some kind who's like, man, this damn job, I need the paycheck, but it's not really filling me up purpose-wise. I don't want, or I'm climbing this hierarchical ladder of success, what I talk about in my book, the way, getting to a place where you're successfully stuck. It's like, okay, well, now I'm the director of operations and I oversee 100 stores, but I don't have any time to do the things that actually I feel like God put me here to do.
Yeah.
Right? And whether that's writing like me, or singing, or whatever the case may be. David and I are here to tell you that, well, we've worked to the 87-hour work weeks. We've been micromanaged. We've been burned out. We've had mental health issues and all the whole gambit of things that this industry throws at you.
Right.
But coming from David's a guy that, and I'm going to toot his own horn because he won't do it for himself. He's a guy that 37 years with a single concept. I mean, that's like
kind of unheard of now.
I'm trying to think of an example. Like Cameron Jordan is the only guy that came off the top of my head. Cameron Jordan is a defensive end for the Saints. I think he's going into his 16th season right now. Not only is that outrageous for a defensive end to be playing that long, but for a guy to be with a single team for 16 years in today's day and age, unheard of.
Right.
Absolutely unheard of. So he's a rare breed. and he's also a guy who's overseen as many as 60 locations at a single time. He's empowered a lot of individuals. You're listening to one of them right now, who came in as a sandwich artist to one of his stores on September 10th, and he then made me a multi-unit manager, and then a district manager overseeing 8, and then he made me a senior district manager overseeing 16 locations. And some of those lessons that he imbued in me transferred over to another concept where I've been a part of numerous turnarounds with one of the largest Taco Bell franchisees in the country, Border Foods LLC. And that's just the in the industry stuff. I mean, now David's an independent consultant, and he's already working with some other franchisees in petroleum and things of that nature. And myself, I've been very blessed to have numerous different gifts and abilities that God has given me, whether that's a public speaking champion, a professional athlete, a published author. Today's the 8th. I'm beginning my doctorate in organizational development and leadership a week from today. And all of those things that I just listed off as far as out-of-store accomplishments, those didn't happen until I got into QSR. And that's part of the whole shtick of not only this episode, but some of the messaging that we're going to be changing more towards for you guys is that fast food can fast-track your dreams. You don't have to ruin those aspirations that you have for yourself. This can actually be the vehicle to help get you there in a very expedited fashion if you do it right. And that begs the question, well, how do you do it?
Yeah, when I say go all in, I don't mean let it engulf you.
Right.
And I think that, and I've seen franchisees, and I know franchisees where it engulfed them. You know, there's a difference between going all in and letting and
making it your idol,
or making it your life.
Right. Yeah, building a job, building a life around a job rather than building a job around a life.
Right. Yeah, we used to have this joke, and sometimes it would be like, you know, if we faced an issue, a problem, an obstacle to overcome, you know, my partner and I would turn to each other and we'd just shrug our shoulders and go, "Subway is my life," you know. But it was a joke,
right?
And it was said sarcastically and tongue in cheek because we would say it to each other to remind each other that it's not our life.
Right.
It's a facet of our life.
Yeah. It is, and that's okay. That's okay. It's okay, and I think that's part of the indoctrination unconsciously that happens in the industry is that you're so in it all day, every day, that your people that you work with start to look, feel, even act like your family, and so then you begin to unconsciously see them as such. No. Like, you're a team. What you do is transactional in exchange for money. And that's okay. And then you go home and you have your actual family, and then you do the things that actually fill you up and feel that you have been put on earth to do in the time that we have here by the grace of God. And so how does fast food fast track your dreams? And it's the same thing. Like, I was thinking about it all day before you come over, and it's really just the same. I mean, we can extrapolate on it, but it's really the same 3 steps that I talk about in my book. And then number 1 is put God first.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. I don't care if we lose followers or if you know, we get flagged on YouTube for messaging. Because let me be very clear. When I say God, I am not talking about the universe. I am not talking about Buddha. I am not talking about Muhammad. I'm not talking about any of them. You know why? Because those are men. I'm talking about Jesus Christ. Because when he is the guy that did the one thing none of those guys ever did, and that is come back from the dead. Why do I say that? Well, from a tactility standpoint, when you put God first, you now, by definition, have a supernatural advantage over your competition, so to speak, and your peers, because you have just sided with a guy that did the one thing that video games represent, and that's resurrect. Okay? So you've got the living God who came back from the dead on your side. And if you remain and keep that your North Star, then, as we talked about before, you're going to do away with idolatry. You're not going to worship money. You're not going to think that your job is your life and all of those things. I mean, I'll tell you a short story. When I was selling insurance, I would make 300 cold calls a day. And I remember this one guy, he picked up the phone. His name was Mr. Jones.
Oh.
And what I thought was going to be a one-call close ended up being a 6-hour conversation with somebody that I didn't know from Adam. And I thought it was going to be a huge commission because he said he wanted a universal life insurance policy. Turns out the guy was actually selling me on the universal life insurance policy, and that was Jesus Christ. Because after I told him all the things I wanted to do, all the people that I wanted to help, all the books that I wanted to write, there was a long pause. And then what sounded like Morgan Freeman came on the other end of the line. He said, "Put God first, or you will lose everything." And that changed my life. And after I finally did put him first and give my life to Christ on March 22nd, 2023, I couldn't find anything. And again, you're talking to a guy with a master's degree, expert in numerous industries, strength and conditioning, insurance, healthcare, and the only job that I could find was
the $1 billion man.
$1 trillion man.
$1 trillion
The $1 trillion man was my chairman of my board of directors.
I mean, making six figures. You were making six figures. And then, read the book.
And then he humbled me.
Yeah.
And he humbled me by eventually, after 6 months of not finding a job, getting backed up on our mortgage more than 4 months, driving a single car driving my wife to and from work in a 2000 Oldsmobile Intrigue. And the only thing intriguing about that car is that it had no power steering or brakes. And I had to drive from Jenison to Holland, drop her off in the morning, pick her up from work, and I couldn't find a job until one of David's managers, assistant managers actually at the time, just at that store 2.9 miles down the road from the garage that we're in right now, called me, and on September 10th, 2023, I started as a sandwich artist at one of David's stores. And then, so that's step one, put God first. And then the thing about when you put God first is that he's going to put you right where he wants you. And if you're listening to this show and if you're a Christian, then odds are that you are exactly where he wants you to be. God wants high performers in low places. Mm-hmm. Jesus was a carpenter, right? Jesus worked with his hands. Yeah. What do you do every day on the line? And so I had no other choice after having at one point negative $86 on a checking account. We couldn't even buy food. There was a time where my wife had to put every single grocery cart item back from the grocery cart on the shelf because we couldn't buy groceries. But my point is,
but I've been there too.
Oh yeah,
I've been there too.
But my point is, because you mentioned something, 3 words before. When you don't have a job for 6 months, and you're humbled the way that I was, the way that you have been, mm-hmm. and you're going to go all in. You're going to go all in on that job. And that's exactly what I did. And that's the cool thing about this industry is that you can go from outhouse to penthouse very quickly, and you don't even have to know anything. I didn't know anything. But what I did have is I had a good attitude, and that's 90% of the job.
What do I say all the time? The job is what?
90% attitude, 10% skill.
There you go.
90% attitude, 10% skill.
And that's transferable. I mean, attitude is transferable.
Oh, yeah.
I can't train attitude. This job is 90% attitude, 10% skill, and there's no way I can train attitude. So what do you think? This is an interview. This is how I interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
This job is 90% attitude, 10% skill. What do you think's more important to me?
Right.
I can't train attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
I can teach a gorilla how to, I can teach a gorilla most of the stuff that happens in the store.
The job isn't hard. Getting people to do the job is hard.
Right.
And getting people to do the job well requires a good attitude on their part.
I remember the first phone call I got from that assistant manager. Hey, David, I hired this kid. She called you a kid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She goes, but he's like older than the average employee that we got. And,
I was 32 at the time.
There's something about him. There's something about him. And, I'll just give you a quick synopsis. I didn't get involved in hiring at that time. I didn't know. So if I want to meet this guy, I want to see what he's about. Mm. And I remember specifically working my schedule because you were closing, that I was going to swing by that store. What time? 8, 9 that night? Yeah. Huh. This guy's kind of interesting.
Kind of interesting indeed. But to David's point, when in terms of going all in, that doesn't, because that's a mistake that I've made, and I talk about it in my book. When I can get successfully stuck, or because I have a problem and I'm working on it, I'm addicted to success, and that can actually become, ironically, a form of self-sabotage that can get me, it can steer me further away from my dreams. Because, I mean, full send, I'm not done chasing my dreams. I've accomplished a couple of them in this industry, becoming a published author, becoming a professional athlete. I still compete at a high level as a sprinter at NCAA meets at my alma mater, where I played football at Grand Valley State. I'm currently in the midst of a contest for a first novel with Scribner. To put that into context, Scribner is Stephen King's publisher. So it's like I still have dreams. And this industry, again, you can manipulate it, and manipulate isn't always a bad word. In fact, the definition of manipulate is to wield with great power.
Right.
So you can manipulate your schedule, the industry itself, to your favor to help you fast track your dreams. And so that's part of the reasons. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as this episode unfolds, as far as the granular aspect of going all in. And then the last part of it, which is really perhaps not more important than put God first, but it's running your race. Because, again, you can get sucked into success, and it can be a form of self-sabotage if you compete against or compare yourself to others. The story that I always tell is it was in February of 23. I was like 220 pounds, so still huge for a sprinter, but I was in really good 400-meter shape, and I knew I was going to win that race that day and against some college kids, and I was first and second. This kid from Hope College and I were just going back and forth, first and second. And then by the end of the third turn, so because there's 3 turns if you're racing indoors, as we're coming up on the third turn, I hear the roar of the crowd, and immediately I revert back to old me, and I start competing and comparing myself and seeing and hearing the glory from the crowd. Like, I start thinking about, oh man, they're probably so excited that this 32-year-old 220-pound guy is about to beat this 140-pound kid who's half his age and all that stuff. And I make a crucial error. Anybody who's run the 400-meter knows that near the end of the race there's something called the kick, where you burn the stick and give it all you got. I kicked about 30 meters too early, and the result was I did not win that race. I took third because I stopped running my race and I started racing that kid from Hope College. And I think that's what happens when we can start competing or comparing ourselves against others, is that we can actually set ourselves up, slow ourselves down, self-sabotage, and get successfully stuck, as I said before. Because and then that's something you have to be, as one of David's words, you've got to have an impenetrable sense of self-awareness to constantly know what it is that you actually want. In fact, I actually have my AGM doing an assignment for me. It's actually due this coming Tuesday, so just a few days from now. I asked him, I said, what does success look like to you? Because if you don't have a goal, you're surely going to hit it. Right? So what is your dream? What are you working towards? If you're not clear on that, well then, I mean, that's part of your homework, is to get clear on what that is. And then from there, then you can get to manipulate the industry to your benefit and just to help turn this thing into the vehicle that helps you get there, rather than the destination, so to speak, that's just a dead-end job that you end up hating, right? Because I think there are a lot of people, especially the type of the individuals that we're talking to, those Renaissance men who are providing in one life and praying for another,
right?
Who feel stuck.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
because it's like they need the paycheck,
right?
But they're not like, I've got way more potential than this, right?
Well, if you have way more potential in what,
right?
To find out what the what is that you think you have way more potential in, and then do that too. I mean, there's not, what.
And the cool thing is, whatever that what is for you, whether it's speaking, singing, writing,
right?
The cool thing about this industry, those are directly transferable to what you do on the job.
They are. They are. And I don't think people realize how much everyday life is transferable to what you do on the job. You know, the self-awareness thing, and you said, what do you want? And so I got married when I was 22 years old. And I wanted to, and then my wife got pregnant 1 month after we got married. And
Getting after it.
yeah, but it was like, I said to myself at 22, 23, you know, I want to be the best husband and father I can be. So one of the things that husbands and fathers do in my head was they provide for their family.
Yeah.
So it's like, so my self-awareness was, I want to provide for my family. You know, I want to, that was my impetus.
Yeah.
Kind of. And so then when QSR presented this opportunity, I'm like, this is the vehicle I can ride to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go all in on this vehicle. But the reason, you know, I went all in on it not because it was QSR, because it was the vehicle to help me reach one of the goals that I wanted.
Right.
So my wife and I have been married 40 years. We have a 39-year-old daughter, a 38-year-old daughter, a 14-year-old grandson, and a 12-year-old grandson.
You're the patriarch in your family?
So, yeah, I'm the patriarch. I have 5 younger siblings.
Yep.
And so all of that, you know, back at 22, 23, I was self-aware to say that I wanted to be
That.
you know, that.
Yeah.
And now
Here you are.
I'm that.
Right. Right.
You know? And the vehicle that I used for that was QSR.
Right.
So QSR fast-tracked my dream of being a great provider, husband, father.
It wasn't necessarily for you to be a director of operations or to oversee 60
Franchisee,
locations or
yeah.
franchisee. Those things were byproducts,
They were.
right?
Yeah.
In other words, we have to make sure that the ends are justifying the means.
Right.
Right.
But
And because really, if you're the type of individual that is who we're talking about and who we're talking to,
Right.
the goal isn't necessarily to become a director of operations or to become a COO of a 250 plus portfolio. It's to get your time back to work on the things that you want to work on.
Right, exactly. And the other thing too that, we talked a lot about all in.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if I'm going to go all in on this vehicle, you know, did a lot of studying on leadership, on, you know, all of these things that we talk about, you know,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, you know, when I first started in QSR, I was not negative about it because I chose it. And it was going to be the vehicle for me to fast track my dreams, but it wasn't, you know, my first job was in QSR as a 16-year-old.
McDonald's.
Yeah. You know, so I had this, you know, when I first started, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to love QSR and this is, you know, going to be wonderful and blah, 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 blah. But I have come to really like QSR and see what it can do for people.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Even if what it does for you doesn't ultimately end up in you being, you know, a franchisee, a COO, a CEO, whatever. You know, I have great people that have worked for me that have gone on to do phenomenal things. I have doctors, I have lawyers.
So you've shepherded people who have used QSR as the vehicle to fast track their dreams.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
You know, I could name, you know, I know I can name employees that have gone on to become doctors. I know employees that have gone on to become attorneys. I know employees that have gone on to be meteorologists on national television.
Yeah.
You know I have employees that, and a lot of those employees still reach out to me.
Right.
You know,
And so, like if you're that high performer in a low place who's kind of feeling trapped, kind of feeling stuck, kind of feeling defeated, kind of wondering, is this where I'm going to end up? Because I've got really two options. I can just climb the hierarchy and ultimately get to the top of a mountain I never really wanted to climb, and then be like, oh my gosh, and have just this pile of regret on your deathbed, wondering, well, I never did write that book. I never did compose that symphony. I never did start that business. Right? So you've got that end of the spectrum, or you can just be like, well, I guess I'm just going to be stuck on the line making tacos or sandwiches for the rest of my life. And so like, how do you navigate that nuance? And I think, and feel free to interject, this is just what I've done in 2 years and as many different concepts in several different stores. I'm going to give it to you. Give it to you for free. Okay? 5 steps. You need to be conducting one-on-ones with your team.
Okay.
You have absolutely got to be conducting one-on-ones with your team for no other reason than the old adage, which is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Exactly.
So if you want to get your time back to start writing that novel or composing that symphony or building that business, right? That is step number 1. Conduct a one-on-one with every member in your store. And it can be very simple. Here's the way that I've done it. I'm going to tell you 3 things about myself, and if it's not totally overstepping, I would love to know 3 things about you. Done. Right? Because again, we have labor hours to adhere to. You can't be taking an hour with every person, okay?
Right.
And then from there, if you pay attention, you're going to start to identify people, leaders in your organization. They're already there, right? Maybe you have a little bit more intentional one-on-ones with those individuals. And that's step number 2. And we talked about it. I said it. David said it. Jesus' first recorded words in the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 38, Jesus turned to them and said, "What do you want?" Right? So now you're getting aligned with potential leaders in your organization. I've told the story before. I'll tell it again. I had somebody I identified as a shift lead manager potential, and I had that conversation with her. What is it that you want? She said, well, my dream, there's that word, would be to have my own place. And I said, well, what does that look like right now for you? Well, right now we're living in a women's halfway house, and I have my kids half the time. We live on the top floor, so I have to drag my kids through the first and second floor where they see crackheads and drug addicts. And I would give anything to just have my own place. Well, what would you have to be making to have your own place? I'd probably have to be making X an hour. Oh, okay. Well, I can actually pay you more than that as a shift lead. Did you know that? No, I didn't. Oh, okay. Well, how about we get on that train then? Because I needed a weekend opener, and that's what her availability was. And so then that was a done deal. So if you find out what the leaders who you can trust, those high performers, those people that you've identified that you can count on to perform while you're not in the building.
Help them achieve their dream. Help
No
them
kidding.
achieve what they want.
Right.
You know,
And then watch them go to the ends of the world for you.
They bury the bodies.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Yeah.
You know, I had a manager who said that in a job interview with another organization. Said, you know, if David asked me, I'd bury the bodies.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you do that with all those individuals who you have who either want more they might even just want more responsibility, right? Or you just identify what their gifts and talents are. They're really good. They're really good with cleanliness. Okay, make them in charge of that, or whatever the case may be. But finding out what those high performers who have manager potential at your store, ask them that question, and then help them get it. It's not hard.
We talked about this last week. You know, when we talked about, you know, the training gap between going from a RGM to an area coach or a district manager or whatever.
Yeah.
We talked about that mindset shift.
Yeah.
Where you are now a district manager, an area coach, a director of operations, whatever. Your job now is to develop leaders. How do you start, identify and develop leaders to run this restaurant?
Right.
How do you develop those leaders? Hunter just spelled it out for you. You have one-on-ones, you talk to them, you have conversations, you sit down. What was one of the things? Hey, Hunter, we're going to sit down and talk, and we're not going to talk about the business.
Yeah.
Didn't I say that to you one time?
Well, you would always say to me, like, or one of the first times we had our one-on-one when I had just taken over the store, you said, you and I are not going to sit down. Or you said, when you and I have these conversations, we're not going to be talking about how to make an Italian BMT.
Right.
Right. Right?
Yeah.
So number one, have those one-on-ones. Number two, have those more intentional, longer conversations with people that you know can be developed into leaders to perform while you're not there, by asking them what it is that they want and then help them get it. And then number three, because again, you are in a business, you do have a job to do, but you can gamify it and it makes you look really good and people are going to question you less. You chase throughput.
Oh, yeah.
You chase throughput. And if you don't know what throughput is, look back at our episode. I think that the title is called Fastest Way to Increase Profit. I'm not going to discuss it right now. I'm just going to let you know that it is not speed of service. Okay, that's a component of it, but it is not that. It's kind of like a squares and rectangles conversation, right? But to hell with food cost, to hell with labor cost. I'm telling you, if you just double down and just hit the freaking gas pedal at your lunch, dinner, and if you're in a Taco Bell concept or you're in a concept that has late night, like Arby's has a late night, I know. Some McDonald's locations have late night. When things get jumping, it's classic 80-20. You don't need to go balls to the wall all day long. Just focus on those bigger day parts, 11 to 2, 5 to 8, 8 to 11, where you're staffed appropriately and you are pushing cars, right? When you do that, your people are going to have fun and you're going to make the business simpler. Because when you chase throughput, you're going to increase transactions. When you increase transactions, you're going to increase sales. When you increase sales, you're going to outsell a lot of your problems, right? Now, we can talk, we're not going to get super granular on all those things. That's not what today is about, although we will continue to have those conversations because David and I love being nerds about that. And then, and we'll include that in the show notes because there's a throughput calculator that you're going to have for free on there. But it's a throughput profit with purpose calculator, because again, you're trying to get your team aligned to chase that so you can buy back more of your time to get you what you actually want to get to, right? Being a provider like David, being a novelist like myself. Go ahead.
I want to highlight a word you said that I think is really important, and it might have gone over people's head. Gamify.
Yeah.
Gamify.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean you don't hold people accountable, but the balance between a circus and a morgue. Don't let the chimps run the business.
Yeah.
But don't let them be afraid to come to work either.
Right.
Great stores that are run by strong leaders, the people want to be there.
Yeah.
How many QS, I love going around to QSRs now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Looking at them, and I can tell. I can feel the atmosphere when I walk in that store. These people don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it through the customer's eyes.
Yeah.
But make it a place. I love the gamify.
Yeah.
I love the gamify.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into the step number 4, which is get into a recognition rhythm. Right? People work for a paycheck, but they die for recognition. So whatever that looks like, your people better than I do.
You should.
Yeah, but the first thing that you need to recognize, at least in the stores that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of that we were successful in turning around, was you need to recognize that there's an accountability factor involved. And the accountability is the best ability. And again, look it up on separate episodes. I'm not going to talk about it ad nauseum on this one. But having an attendance or a call-off chart is huge, right? You can have the best players on the field, but if they're not getting out of the locker room, doesn't even matter, right? People have got to show up to their shifts when they're scheduled to be at their shift if you're going to have a snowball's chance in hell at getting back your time to do what it is that you want to do. So if you have more questions about what that actually looks like from a conceptualization and implementation standpoint, just DM us or leave a comment on the video, and we'll get back to you as far as what an accountability program looks like. But that's number one in terms of getting this recognition rhythm thing going. And other examples would be if you're in a concept that does track speed of service, you've probably got a leaderboard on a monitor somewhere between like your one of your hand washing stations and your and your fountain machine. Right. It's somewhere up there, right? If you have access, get in touch with your above store leader to have that name changed, right? Because store 32894 is not very aligning and it's not very inspiring, right? Not your average crew. That's kind of cool, right?
We had a group one time that they called themselves Bound by the Footlong.
Yeah,
and
that's dope.
And they were bound by the footlong. And the ironic thing of that is none of the people that were part of that group called Bound by the Footlong still work for the brand, but they're all still in touch with each other.
Yeah,
they still have a text thread. I mean, and we're talking 20 some years ago.
But that's a crucial point, because the majority of the people that we work with are either young kids yearning for an identity or broken adults who
yearning for an identity.
Right. So getting a team name on that leaderboard that everybody's involved in. So take a vote on it on your group chat or in-store meeting, like, hey, what do we want to start calling ourselves around here? Right? And then just living living by that instead of store 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? A little thing like that. And then having like the store that I'm at right now, it was actually we've talked about in previous episodes, my AGM's idea. We have an employee of the period plaque and perpetual plates. It says The Revolution, which is the store name, and then it says employee of the period 7 2026, period 8 2026. They're forever immortalized now. That means something to them.
It's the most improved employee of the period.
So we have both.
Oh, you do? Okay.
We have both. We have the perpetual plaque for employee of the period, and then we also have a most improved employee of the period that has an acrylic plaque.
Okay.
An acrylic award that they get to take home and take.
That's the driver to me.
Oh yeah.
That's the driver.
Yeah. It's just a little thing, right? It's $40 a month. That's like, right? I mean, if you're hurting for that kind of cash, I'm telling you, you will get that money back with the time that you get back from that person who you just award that to, because they're going to go balls to the walls for you. Right.
They'll bury the bodies.
They will bury the bodies. Swag. I have reinvested my bonuses back into the business, so to speak, because, hey, let's just be honest, you can't do it without them. So if you hit all of your metrics or all of your KPIs for a period or whatever the time horizon is for you to hit your bonuses, if you can incentivize your team to go and get that thing, whatever that is, KPI wise, do that, and then make sure that they get it, because they're going to start thinking that you walk on water. Seriously, they'll say things like, well, because I've like I had a call about a novel, this novel that I'm working on right now with my agent, and I duck out early one night and I just said, hey, you guys gonna be okay? I've already got so-and-so coming in. And they're like, yeah, go. Everything that you do for us, go. And I kind of stop and pause. I'm like, what do you mean everything that I do? And then I started thinking about, oh, yeah, I guess, right? I mean, I have spent thousands of dollars on, and that's not to let my right hand know what my left is doing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that from the standpoint of, that's the buy-in that you'll get from your team when you just do little things like that for this, because so little means so much to them. An acrylic award that sits in their nightstand, right? A hoodie that they get to wear to school. Now where they work is cool, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all of those things. And so then over time, what you start to do, because it'll take a little bit of time, but like when Jim Collins talks about this in his book, Good to Great, you're going to start building a flywheel. Like I talked about, that recognition rhythm, where it's just going to start happening organically. People are going to start shouting at each other out in the group chat. They're going to start giving kudos and praising each other and giving hearts and emojis and all of these things. And it's just that's one of David's favorite things is culture, right? You need that sort of culture, right, when you're not in the building, so they can perform when you're not there. So you're not having to cover all the call-offs, because there isn't any, because you have an attendance program, right? And you're not being questioned by your bosses because they're putting up the numbers. So you don't have to work 1 hour more than your required 50 or whatever the case may be there. Okay.
Make sure it's natural.
Oh,
that
yeah.
It's genuine.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, especially, I mean, people can sense.
Miners have really good bullshit detectors.
Oh yeah, very much so.
And then from there, and this is hot shit if you're in the fast food industry because it just doesn't exist. And that's accountability charts. People have organizational charts, but it's just purely from a who reports to who standpoint in this industry. I haven't seen anything from a true accountability chart. Who's in charge of what, not necessarily who reports to who.
Right.
Right? And so if you need a conceptualization on that, message us, right? I can also maybe put a picture in the show notes. Best bet, buy the book Traction by Gino Wickman. He'll explain what an accountability chart looks like and the distinction between that and what you traditionally see in this industry and others, which is the organizational chart.
And almost all industries, org charts are, you know.
Yeah, so it's like an org chart on steroids because again, it's not just who reports to who, it's an ownership transfer, right? Of certain tasks and authorities in the store, and that's something that we've talked about being called excellence through empowerment, right? And the more that you empower your people, then that's just leadership as a tool of itself.
Yeah. Why are you calling me about this? You should be calling Hunter about that.
Right.
Yeah, but you're above Hunter. No, the Hunter's in charge of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, why are you calling me about this? You should be calling, you know, this person about that. They're in charge of catering. I'm not.
Yeah.
But you're the, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, but you're the director of operations. You're the, you know, you're this, you're that. Yeah, but
go talk to that person because that person's better at that than I am. You're gonna get better direction and better feedback and better guidance from that person because they're better at it than me.
I was watching a video of, I don't know if anyone knows Jungle Jim. So he is a really large theme park grocery store in Ohio. Largest square footage grocery store in the world under one roof, square footage. He says, hire smart people and then you look smart. That's his whole philosophy. He says, I'm dumb. I said, but I hire smart people.
Yeah. Yeah, I got no problem looking like a dumbass every day.
So my job as a leader is to identify those smart people. Hunter is really, really good at culture. Mm-hmm. This lady over here in this market is really, really good at breaking down KPIs. Mm-hmm. This guy over here in this market is really good at the nuts and bolts of maintenance.
Yeah.
You know, on and on and on and on and on. And then I tell the team.
Yeah.
If you have a question about how to digest and break down KPIs, call her. Don't call me, call her.
Yeah.
You know, you got a question about culture and employee relations and those kind of things, call Hunter. Mm-hmm. You know, you got a question about, you know, my soda machine, my fountain machine's not working. Don't call me, call him.
Right.
You know.
And so to review, if you do those 5 things, right? So your guiding principles are put God first, go all in, and then run your race. And then how that shows up granularly, tactically, step by step on the job is have one-on-ones, have those more intentional conversations with leaders that you've identified, have the potential to become more in your store by asking them the question, what do you want? And then help them get it. Throughput optimization and gamification is step 3. Because again, you do have a job to do, and it's really simple if you can just chase one thing, right? If you chase 2 rabbits, both will escape. And then number 3, building that recognition rhythm, right? Accountability, shout outs, swag, even a simple good job, things of that nature. And then begin to transfer ownership, excellence through empowerment. And then you're going to start to have a situation where you can actually build the job around your life rather than building your life around your job. So for me, like how does that like practically speaking, what does that look like for somebody like myself? Well, I'm a guy who's a morning person, and I get up at 5 and I have I have some coffee. Right now it's nice out, so I'll sit outside on the front porch with my cats and drink coffee and just talk to God, and just setting my starting blocks, so to speak, for the day. I'll come back in here and I'll write for 1,000 words, 2,000 words, depending on how I'm feeling, and then I'll train. I'll do something because I don't sprint every day. I'm 35, right? So I probably sprint 2 to 3 times a week, lift 2 to 3 times a week. I break a sweat every day. I do something. And all those things, because I'm feeding my passions, I'm chasing my dreams of becoming a novelist full time and all that good stuff. And I'm still that professional athlete. I love that piece of me. And then I go to work from 10 to 8 or 11 to 9.
And you're all in when you go to work.
Yeah, and that's my life. And am I going to be, this is a great company that I work for. They take really good care of me. They really do a phenomenal job respecting work-life balance, and that allows me the opportunity to do what I do, and which is using this as a vehicle to fast track my dreams, however long that takes. But I know that I'm done riding or being stuck on the hamster wheel where I'm just going to climb a mountain and just be like, oh, well, now I'm here and now I feel really good. I'm making all this money and I get all this influence and all these things. It's like, well, I really didn't want to do that. Right. And that doesn't mean that I won't do that if that's what God wants me to do. Right. But I mean, because I'm not going to get between you and God. But
so if you would have asked me when I was 17, 18 years old, are you going to be at your age now a retired franchisee, director of operations in fast food? I would have said absolutely not. I'm in school for medicine.
Yeah.
Pre-med.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was in college for.
Yeah.
God
mm-hmm.
orchestrated this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't look back at it and say, big middle finger to God for orchestrating. I got what I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, it's John 15:5, right? He is the vine, you are the branch.
Right.
So he's going to take you where you want to go, but you are attached to him.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
So
where was I going with that? Oh, I mean so I was saying that to say, how do I say this? If all this sounds great, but it kind of sounds a bit Pollyanna for your situation, well, then I would say, well, if you're in the Midwest or if you have the means to relocate, and I'll drop a link in the show notes, I know that the company that I work for is always hiring, right? And I have no problem plugging them. Border Foods, BORDER Foods, as in plural, FOODS.com, and apply. You can tell them that I sent you. I know that we are always hiring. They are always taking the new people and even getting them on the bench if you're an RGM or an AGM or a shift lead or all those things. But I'm telling you that is one thing that this company has done a really good job of for me, is allowing me that balance in my life to use the vehicle that I'm in, which is as an RGM, to get me to where I want to go. Fast food is fast tracking my dreams. I've given company keynote speeches, and I have enough time to play professional football if I'm going to play it again this year, which I said I wasn't going to last year, but I ended up doing it again this year. I don't know how I feel about it this time, but I mean, I've written.
Well, if you play, it gives me something to do.
Yeah, I've written 2 books now in my short time, which is like 15 months with this company. My second book, Please Dream Responsibly.
Oh, you wrote the first book with my company.
I wrote the first book with your company.
Right.
Yeah, right. It's right there. Second book, Please Dream Responsibly. That'll be out sometime next year, and then the novel that I'm going to be winning the Scribner contest for my first debut novel. That'll be a big bad boy. But I say that to say, like, if this doesn't seem feasible, if you work for a tyrant or if you just can't get out of the store because they have successfully monopolized your time, as some of the things that David and I have talked about being one of the real bulwarks and villains in this industry, then apply at borderfoods.com. Tell them I sent you. And because I know that the principles that we talked about can work at any location. Doesn't mean that they will work at any location, company, or concept. But I do know in the company that I work for, it has allowed these principles that I talked about to get my team to buy in, to perform while I'm not there, which has allowed me to get my time back so I can do these things so I'm not trapped and providing in one life while praying for another. So this is your call to action portion of the episode. Download the Fast Food Fast Track playbook in the show notes. You're going to get that Profit with Purpose calculator. It's going to show you how to use it, all of the money that you can make your bosses that'll make you look really good and get you recognition and get you that time back, because they're not going to bother you if you're putting up numbers. I'm just telling you. Okay? And then from there, you're going to get a 28-day case study. Numerous times, David and I have done this, where we've gone into struggling stores, turned that puppy around in 28 days. But that's not just the reason why you're doing it to turn it around. You're turning it around so you can get your time back to do those things that you feel that God has called you here to do. And buy my book.
Yeah, turning around stores is an adrenaline rush.
Oh my gosh, it's so much fun! It's so much fun. And the thing is that it's the principles that we talk about seem to be concept universal. I mean, we just had a GM in Kansas for a chicken franchise who had a new store. And anybody who knows new stores knows those things take a while to start hitting KPIs. They're a new store as of 2026, and we're almost 2/3 of the way through through the year. Not even 2/3 of the way through the year. And after implementing these things that we just talked about, he full bonused for the first time. He was working more than 50 hours a week. He got down to 37.
He was working like close to pushing 70
initially. Yeah, not even working full time after just 28 days. So if you're thinking, will this concept work for me? Yes. So download that. Get my book. I'll put that link in the show notes as well. And again, I'll put the link in the show notes. Apply at Border Foods. One company that I know this will work at, although I think it's universal, is Border Foods. You got anything?
Job is 90% attitude. Have a great attitude.
And we'll talk to you guys next time.